What becomes 10x creepier at night? Old man in lawn chair in the front yard not doing anything. This was my neighbor and it only scared me once till I figured he just liked being outdoors. Lawn chair, driveway, dog sleeping at his feet. It's midnight in summer and he's out there under the moon surrounded by empty beer cans. Then a snowy winter morning, school's cancelled, but he's sitting in the driveway in his lawn chair in a big puffy jacket, scarf hat and gloves, literally getting covered in snow. His dog is at his feet, laying on his back, also getting snowed on. I wave like Forrest Gump because I'm out running and neither of us are sane. He waved, then shrugged in a sort of fuck it, right way that made me crack up. R.I.P. dude, maybe you knew the secret to a good life. Phone calls. Someone knocking or ringing the doorbell. Walked through my town center at like 1 AM one night. No one is around. Every single phone box that is dotted around is ringing. I didn't dare answer one in case I accidentally started one of those crazy mini games on GTA. Edit. A lot of people asking where on earth has phone boxes. When I was at uni at least, 2015 at the time, there were several groups of 4 phone boxes dotted along Luton town centre. Although to be honest BT phone boxes are pretty common all over the UK and are mostly frequented by homeless people trying to get hold of universal credit. It was your chance out of the matrix. The pile of clothes on my chair. Cornfields. Feels like I'm being stalked. Okay, that was pretty corny. I went to a very rural high school and often I worked stay past dark for rehearsal. I was in theater. Whenever the corn was high we had a rule. Do not ever stop, and if you hit something vaguely humanoid, keep driving before it gets you. Cows on one side, corn or soybeans on the other, woods and back. The general rule was if there was an active shooter, run for the woods or the corn. An ice cream truck slowly driving through the neighborhood playing the Pop Goes the Weasel melody. I had a nightmare just like this. In the dream I lived in a huge city, but for some reason, everyone was gone. Everything was awash in that coppery artificial lots, as an ice cream truck slowly began going down the street with that song playing. I was on the top floor of the building though, so I didn't care. But suddenly I flew down hundreds of floors while still in my bed, to the very bottom floor, right by the entrance to the building. When the melody was right before the pop part, the truck stopped. Then I heard someone whisper pop in my ear. Unfortunately for that ice cream man, I have a trick of turning any nightmare into a sexy dream at any point. What great times we had. A parked car with someone in it. And you can only see the silhouette. And it is wearing a stovepipe hat. Why would the car be wearing a hat? Because his hair is a mess. I work at 4 AM so when I walk to my car it's still night basically. Once in a while a person is walking down the sidewalk, alone and I can only see them under the streetlights. Why I ran into this a couple nights ago when I was stargazing while sitting on the back of my car. I hear footsteps and the guy had a flashlight. I slowly started to make my way to the front door before I realized it was just a neighbor I knew walking his dog in pitch darkness. Whatever you're into I guess, but I nearly had a heart attack. I mean he's the normal one walking his dog when it has to go. Wouldn't you look like the weird one to him laying on your car and then shuffling to the front real quick? A call from your family. 10x doesn't cover that. It's never good news when family calls in the middle of the night. IDK bro. One time my brother called me in the middle of the night because he was drunk and eating mozzarella sticks and that reminded him of me for some reason. When I worked night shift, I'd get home at 8 AM then crash into bed. All my family knew my schedule. We'd call each other at dinner time before I headed to work, or while I was headed home from work and they were on their way in. My mom, however, would call probably once a month or so around noon or 1, then get huffy with "Are you seriously still asleep? Are you going to sleep all day?" "Yes mom, that's the point, I work all night. I've had this same schedule for 2 years." I answered because I assumed it was an emergency because I know the one time I don't, something will actually be wrong. So I started calling her at midnight just to chat. She'd wake up in a panic thinking something was horribly wrong, and I just "Are you already in bed?" It's still early. Did you sleep all afternoon? Lazy, oh, you don't like being woken up? HMM. Sounds familiar. Children's laughter. Hearing my 1-stroke 2-year-old daughter laughing in her sleep through the monitor in the middle of the night. Especially when you suddenly remember she was sleeping over at your parents' house that night. One time I went into my daughter's room in the morning. It was still dark, and she was just standing in the middle of the room, hair hanging in her face. Then she started cackling. Thanks for the heart attack, 6-year-old. Almost as bad as my niece, when she was about 4, waking me up because she had stolen my friend's wallet in the middle of the night, taken all the cards and cash out, arranged it in a circle around her, and started chanting in tongues but naked in the kitchen. Scared the balls out of all of us. Turns out she had heard a woman speak French in public and was vividly dreaming about building sandcastles on a beach in France. Mirrors. I legitimately cannot look at myself in the dark. I need to turn a light on or my heartbeat will genuinely start to quicken. Guys, my night vision's pretty decent. I obviously cannot see in the pitch dark, but I can see enough to understand that there's a freaky looking blob where I should be. That's okay. Your reflection is still looking at you. Watching. Waiting. Commiserating. The sudden absence of any noise. The air conditioner shuts off, it's suddenly, absolutely quiet, and you wonder what's creeping up on you that's making no noise whatsoever. You try to listen in. It seems the silence itself is creeping closer and closer, even the ringing in your ears ceases. Then, you see it. Nobody hears your scream. The chair in your room or stand-up heater. I have a really old rocking chair I keep in my basement. It's dark as fuck down there too. I know I'm going to go down there at night at some point and see it faintly rocking on its own. It's a family heirloom so I feel like I have to keep it. I definitely don't want that fucking thing upstairs though. Laundry chair. To me. Hello, who's that? Who's there? I'm not afraid. Computer chair with clothes on it. There's something about flying a kite at night that's so unwholesome. My dad once flew our kite off the garage roof at night. He tied a mini torch to it and we could hear the neighbors talking about UFOs and arguing over who to call about it. Bodies of water. Bodies in water. In my house the heat turns on in the middle of the night and makes a ticking sound in the walls. So if it's midnight I'll wake up to hear ticking, then I'd feel heat, then I see my dog on my bed, Black Lab, and I scream. Happened last night. There's an elderly woman down the road who will often stand outside and call for her cat to come home, sometimes for a few minutes, sometimes hours. However long it takes the cat to come. In the daytime, it's just laughable. But at night, she's a gown wearing silhouette under the street light, calling some name like something out of an urban legend, and it's horrifying. When I had first moved here and heard that going on at midnight, I turned off all my lights and peeked through the window blinds. Thought it had to be some kind of lost spirit. I also can't shake the mental image of a man in a cat costume crawling toward her on all fours. My baby, there you are. The sound of digging outside. I used to be terrified as a kid BC I would hear wood chopping sounds on especially quiet nights. One night I made my pops come in and sit with me to listen. Well, it was just my shitty wall clock ticking away. Your feet dangling off the bed. Being almost 6 feet 5 inches, it is always scary, every night, and there's nothing I can do but let them toes get nibbled by the crackhead under the bed. If I were you I'd leave my ass hanging from the side as well. The random house settling creaking noises. The footsteps coming from the attic as you're falling asleep. Theme parks. I used to do overnight cleaning in them. When you're there all alone around dead animatronics and weird shaped buildings at 4 AM, it's fucking scary. Playgrounds. Swings swinging creakily. Story time. When I was in college I used to hang out at a friend's house that was a few miles from my apartment. A couple of times my roommate drove us and got trashed, leaving me the choice of sleeping on the floor or walking home. I like my bed. The path home goes between a playground and a cemetery. No biggie, right? Did I mention it's 3 AM? Well, I'm walking through the playground and the swings are creaking, which happens. Then I realize that there's no wind and only one of the 3 swings is moving back and forth in a regular motion. I never ran so fast in my life. Small children standing in the doorway. Our youngest 2 are a nightmare for that. They just stand there staring at us. Not together. The worst occasion was as I was just dropping off and hear my wife say hello, then followed by "Oh, there's nobody there." Hallways. When you have a holiday house in a small town in Australia, right near a rather large lake. Don't look at the lake. I did it once and thought I saw a massive black thing swimming around in the water. In fact, at least half of the people who live there, that I have asked, have said they have seen something massive swimming around in the ocean or lake at night. So open, deep, murky water is 10x more terrifying at night. I see a little silhouette of a man. My friend has a very black, very big Doberman, and while she's quite large she can climb quietly onto the bed. Once she got lonely and decided to climb into the bed where I was sleeping. When she lays down sometimes she'll let out a really loud hairy whump, so I woke up to a scary roar and a heavy weight pressing itself onto me. I was terrified for a moment, but then I felt bad for screaming and scaring her. A co-worker said the same about cleaning churches at night, minus the animatronics. When he was working on his masters he was a janitor for an archdiocese and he said the bigger churches especially, get pretty creepy in the dark. It didn't help that one time he ran into a homeless man who had broken in at around 3 AM. You walk past it, as if you didn't see it. You feel its stare, yet ignore it, hoping against hope that it will leave you alone, won't follow you and won't pull you through like it did the others that dead luck at it.